Washington University. And I want to welcome all of you here this morning for this very interesting opportunity for us to hear from His Excellency, Ambassador Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry, the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan to the United States. Before I invite Dean Moran from the GW Law School to come to the podium to formally introduce His Excellency, I want to thank those from the embassy, those from the law school and from the Elliot School for coordinating and participating in the program this morning. You know, having the opportunity, really first and foremost, to hear from world leaders such as His Excellency is something very important to us here at the university. But in addition, to be able to work together, different sections of the university, is an invaluable opportunity which we here at GW treasure. Events such as these continue to prepare our students to go forth and become leaders in what is truly a global world. Thank you again, and welcome to the Elliot School. And Dean Moran, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Vice Dean. And I want to first of all thank the Elliot School for hosting or co-hosting this event with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly special in so many ways. In addition to getting the wonderful opportunity to introduce the ambassador from Pakistan, it also gives me the opportunity to really express what it is a pleasure for the law school to team up with the Elliot School to offer what I consider to be a really outstanding program that shows the synergies between law and public policy. And as I was saying to the ambassador earlier, really acquainting our students with the truly global nature of what they will be experiencing once they graduate from the law school. I want to tell you, I only had the opportunity to meet His Excellency this morning, but already I can tell that this is an individual who has not only given of himself, not only to his country, but also to the world in terms of what diplomacy truly means. And his career really does signify that. So I want to just give you some idea of how this gentleman has really given of himself, not only to his country, but also to the diplomatic corps, which is really what spurs not only us, but also many nations in a world that's increasingly more global. So as you know, he is the current Pakistani ambassador to the United States. Prior to that, he was foreign secretary of Pakistan from 2013 until 2017. And prior to that, he was spokesperson for the foreign ministry for Pakistan. It's interesting to look at his career from the standpoint of how often he's had the opportunity to really give up himself for his country and do it in such an exemplary way in the diplomatic corps. He has served as ambassador of Pakistan to the Netherlands from 2009 to 2012, and he was Pakistan's deputy permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, and he served in many key positions in the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He holds a master's degree in international relations from the Fletcher School of Law and also diplomacy at Tufts University, and has a first-class Bachelor of Science degree from Punjab University in Lahore. It's interesting that in today's world there are just so many things that are pivotal in terms of diplomacy, and our guest today is going to share his perspectives on regional issues and international politics that are so endemic in all of what we see in the news. I want to just let everyone know, after he gives his commentary, the ambassador will take questions afterwards, and that will be led by our interim director of international affairs, Sarah Ford. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to invite to the podium, and please join me in greeting His Excellency Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry.
A very good morning to you all, and thank you for coming to this session. Let me begin by expressing my profound thanks to Elliot School of International Affairs and GW Law, and Dean and your team for hosting me this morning here. It is always very refreshing to come back to an academic setting. Throws me back in time to when I was sitting on one of those chairs somewhere. So I'm really very pleased and honored. Thank you very much. The talk that I would like to share with you today is about my perspective of where the world is headed, where our region from which I come is headed, and what is it that my country is doing. So I think when we sit after my talk, I think there will be hopefully questions that we can together explore. It's never a one-way learning, it's always a two-way learning. The world, ladies and gentlemen, is changing, has changed in fact, a great deal. I recall that 28 years ago, when I was doing my master's in Tufts University in Fletcher School, that was a very eventful time. And this is 1989. You recall all that here? Berlin Wall came down and Cold War was ending. There was euphoria there. I remember sitting in the Blakely Hall and we used to have conversations whether the Soviet Union will come back or not. All that is history. And people thought that it is end of history. People started writing articles like that. And globalization set in and everybody felt that now the world has reached its nirvana. Some 25, 30 years later, that doesn't seem to be so. In fact, the conflicts are continuing and the situation looks much more uncertain than what one had hoped. So where is the world and how would you characterize this world order that exists today? If you see at the strategic plane, the major power rivalry is intensifying. With rising China and a resurgent Russia, you can see that there are now questions being raised on the unipolar world, on the US leadership of the world. When the United States decided to pivot its policies towards Asia during the previous administration actually, it was largely perceived as communist or Cold War style policy of containment of China. And the Chinese responded by launching their own One Belt, One Road initiative, which touches almost 67 countries. And there are very few global and regional security mechanisms to address or deal with this major power rivalry. The UN Security Council is divided. NATO under President Trump's policy is still evolving its role. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is also at a very initial stages. In South China Sea or East Asia, we do not have any regional security mechanism. So the situation is not very clear as to where the world order is headed. In the security domain, the threat of transnational terrorism is continuing. Bulk of Middle East and North Africa remains unstable and mired with that menace. North Korea is provoking the world every time it's testing some new weapon and has kept the entire East Asia on the brink. The sources of threats to international security have also multiplied. You have, of course, nuclear weapons, conventional imbalances, cyber security, food security, and so on. So the situation around on the security plane is also speaking of a world which is in flux. On the socio-economic plane, migration, which used to be regarded as an asset, is now witnessing pressures which are projecting the immigration as an economic or a security threat. You have climate change subjected to controversies. You have free trade under pressure, for which we worked for decades, and new protectionist tendencies are coming in. Narrow nationalism is also raising its head, both in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So what we see from the strategic plane or from the security dimension or in the socio-economic domain, the world is changing. We all don't know honestly where is it headed. I know that we had a world order in post-World War II centered around what came to be known as UN Charter principles, but that all is now changing. Some people call it the world in disarray. You must have seen the book by Richard Haas, A World in Disarray. Actually, he titled it A World in Disarray. So it's a world in flux. It's a world in disarray. That is a challenge, but that's also an opportunity to shape it to the manner in which we want to. And you, the future leaders, would probably have a role to play in doing that. And in all this, where is it that my region, South Asia, headed? In South Asia, India and China have an uneasy peace. India and Pakistan are not talking. Afghanistan remains unstable. And with Iran, the nuclear deal that was so painstakingly negotiated for 10 years is under question marks. So equally unstable situation. So how has my country done in an uncertain world and unstable region? I'll make 4 points. The biggest threat that Pakistan has seen in the last 2 decades, since 9/11 particularly, related to terrorism, pure and simple. And that was mainly because some 40 years ago, 38 years ago, when the Soviet forces came into Afghanistan, the concept of Afghan jihad came up, and extremist religious elements came down to Afghanistan to fight this jihad. When the Soviets left in 1988, these people stayed back. And after 9/11, when Tora Bora was bombed heavily, all these militants moved towards Pakistan in the tribal areas or the mountainous areas between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And when Pakistan after 9/11 became a member of the coalition, international coalition, we became a legitimate target for these militants. And we started receiving their attacks. Sometimes as many as 150 terrorist incidents per month on the average between 2004 and 2014, until the nation said that enough is enough. So the politicians sat together and they said we need to have a consensus. And they did evolve a consensus that violence and terrorism under any name and under any pretext is not acceptable. And once we had that under our belt, the military moved into those tribal areas. You may have all heard, if not all, some of you, a place called North Waziristan, which became a hotbed of these insurgents and militants who built their hideouts and sanctuaries and IED factories and tunnels and whatever else they need to do. 3 years down the line, I'm very pleased to inform you that we have secured that entire territory. And it was not a mean achievement by any standards, because this area had been kept without a governance for centuries, used mainly as a buffer zone between the British India and the Russian empires. Today, that entire territory is under the control of the state of Pakistan, and the terrorists have no place to hide. They are on the run. And the proof of that is that the average that I gave you, 150 terrorist incidents per month, has come down not even to the fingers of a single hand. So we are happy about it. That has had a salutary effect on the economic situation of the country. And that's my second point that I want to make about my country. That this is attracting investments. Bulk of the investments, I will be very candid, are coming in from China. But so are the Europeans and the Turks and the Koreans, and now corporate America, going into Pakistan in a big way. Because they can all see that the investments that we had made in a couple of years in energy and in infrastructure will come online as of next year. So people are situating themselves in Pakistan. The third element that I want to make about my country is the youth bulge. 60% of Pakistan's population is below the age of 30. That's a big number. At a time when Europe and China and many others are facing the problem of aging for one reason or the other, youth would be a big asset. I do take the point that it could be a liability if we don't handle them well, but it would be a great asset if we do. And we are 208 million people now. In fact, we crossed Brazil to become the 5th largest population of the world. The fourth area is the democratic process in Pakistan. We have not been very lucky since our creation in 1947 and had our democratic process interrupted at least 4 times by military coups and dictatorships. But for the last 8-9 years, we are moving on. There are still disturbances, of course, as we are discovering, and I think the whole world is discovering, including this country. Democratic processes are noisy. They are not very smooth. And therefore, sometimes people get impatient in Pakistan. Why these changes? Why this instability? But I think this is nature of the process. Let me say a few words about our relations with this great country, the United States. The United States is a very, very important relationship for us. For most of the world, this is the country that has intense relationship. But for Pakistan, for 70 years, this relationship has been very intense. But it has seen its ups and it has seen its downs. And it's very interesting when you map these ups and downs, that in the 60s we were very close, 70s we came down, 80s we went up, 90s we came down, 2000s we went up, and 2010s we came down. What a roller coaster. So by that reckoning, I think 2020 onward we should be going up. The important point is that whenever we work together, we both benefited and the world benefited. And we are passing through a low period, but I'm very sure that the resilient nature of this relationship will bring it back up. Because we accomplished something together, and we can and will continue to do that. The major issue that the United States has at the moment, which is impacting hugely its relations with Pakistan, is Afghanistan. The United States is up against a mighty challenge of winning that war, which it started some 16 years ago. After huge military and economic investments, according to the estimates published, over $680 billion have been spent on Afghanistan so far. And a recurring expense of $21 billion a year is still continuing, even in this modest surge. It can't be left open-ended. So there is a keenness within the United States to bring an end to Afghan war. And they believe that Pakistan can be helpful in that. It is alleged that Pakistan is housing the terrorists, the Taliban and the Haqqanis, which go and do the fighting in Afghanistan. And we are trying to tell the Americans, interlocutors, that this is not so. Especially in the last couple of years, we have not only acted against the terrorists, but we have put them on the run. And the Taliban and the Haqqanis are no friend of Pakistan. They do not represent the worldview that the people of Pakistan have. We have no interest in giving any sanctuaries to them, because that A, spoils our relations with Afghanistan and the United States, B, they don't really belong to us, they belong to Afghanistan, and C, we would like to see Afghanistan stabilize as much as the United States, if not more. And why do we need to see Afghanistan stabilize? Because we have seen in the past 38 years that whenever Afghanistan was unstable, Pakistan suffered. The instability flowed through those porous borders of nearly 2,500 kilometers into Pakistan. Refugees, there are 3 million refugees until today. It started with 5 million, 38 years, 3 million refugees. Kalashnikov culture, drugs, criminal mafias. We don't want another civil war in Afghanistan, as a result of which a new wave of refugees will come to us. We have every interest in stabilizing Afghanistan. So why would we support somebody who goes and then destabilizes Afghanistan? So I think we need to have better cooperation, better intelligence sharing, a better approach of working together. We believe that we have actually commonality of interest in Afghanistan between Pakistan and the United States. Pakistan wants to stabilize Afghanistan because of our own interests, because we suffer from the instability there, and US wants to stabilize because it has to end this long war. So we think that there is a common ground to be achieved. The strategy that President Trump had announced on August 21 was not received well, because it had laid a heavy emphasis on the military solution. And we thought that Afghanistan is far more complex than to achieve only a military victory. So we are having those conversations with the US leadership. Secretary Tillerson was in Pakistan, and Secretary Mattis is going there next month, and so on and so forth. We hope that we'll be able to arrive at a consensus in figuring out what should be done in Afghanistan. India, Our relations with India are under stress because of two main factors. One is Kashmir, where the Indian forces have unleashed repression and brutalities which Pakistan and the people of Pakistan do not like. They've had centuries of contacts with the Kashmiris. The people of Pakistan and people of Kashmir are connected by blood, by rivers that flow from Kashmir, by roads that always come towards Pakistan. And this bond cannot be broken. So the struggle in Kashmir will continue and Pakistan will support it, of course, only diplomatically and politically. The second bone of contention is terrorism. Indians feel that Pakistan is acting against terrorists which are anti-Pakistan but not against the terrorists which are anti-India. Whenever the two countries try to sit together and talk, some terrorist incident happens and India suspends the dialogue. And I tell my interlocutors in India, which I have done, not once but several times, that the objective of these terrorists is precisely to not allow us to work together. And when you actually suspend the dialogue, you serve their purpose. It might be a better idea to keep talking and isolate these terrorists rather than hate each other. We have not succeeded yet, but we should not lose hope, because the only direction I see of these two big countries is peaceful coexistence. China, our northern neighbor, we have a very good relationship with China, has always been a good relationship. But when President Xi came, he reoriented the economy of China. The Chinese economy, as you know, was mainly concentrated. It was an export-led economy, with most of the exports going out of the ports in eastern China. And with fears of overheating of the economy, there was a thought process within the Chinese polity to have a nationwide distribution of resources, and Western China, which was far less developed than the Eastern China, became the focus of the government of China, President Xi. So a huge development started. But then Western China is 5,000 kilometers away from Eastern China. And if you add the 8,000 kilometers loop through the Malacca Strait from the Pacific and the Indian Ocean before it reaches the Mediterranean, it's a long journey. And here is a shorter way from Western China across the Himalayas and Karakorams. You come down right to the ports in Pakistan, which are on the Indian Ocean, which is not more than 2,000 kilometers. So it made a perfect sense for that development activity in Western China to find this alternative route. And that has happened because for Pakistan it was a welcome opportunity, because it attracted investments, and also huge infrastructures have been built now in the western part of Pakistan, which is also mountainous and less developed. So it was a win-win, and we thought that eventually this corridor, north-south corridor, will pan out east and west and will benefit the whole region. So that's where we are on that. I think on the whole, let me conclude, because bulk of the benefit comes from Q&A and I don't want to take away time from that. That in this uncertain world, Pakistan is winning the war against terrorism, and we are happy about it. Our economy is going up. But we are concerned that if Afghanistan does not stabilize, all our gains could be tentative and at risk. And therefore, we want to work with the United States, which for its own reasons wants to stabilize Afghanistan, to help bring stability and peace in our region. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate that.
So,
question or two for you to kick us off. First, you spoke about this administration's strategy toward Afghanistan quite a bit, and you also mentioned that there's been this roller coaster of our relationship with Pakistan, and so you're talking about the 2010s. That's not just this administration, it goes back to the previous administration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, from your perspective, do you see a marked shift in this administration's strategy towards Pakistan itself as part of the more broader South Asia strategy?
Mm-hmm.
And my second question is, either way, whether you do or you do not, as a diplomat, as an ambassador, your job is not just to present Pakistan to the United States, but to translate the United States back to Pakistan. And I was wondering how you articulate some of the things that you spoke to us about back to your own people back home with regard to how the United States views Pakistan and our relationship.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Yes, we have seen a continuity and a change go hand in hand from the previous administration to the new administration. Let me elaborate. When President Obama announced his Asia pivot, I think sometime in 2011, and kind of rivalry emerged between China and United States. It could not be a rivalry, it could also be a sort of competition. And India was chosen by the United States as its strategic partner. And with Pakistan and China going for this economic project, the alignments started getting sharper. And with Russia joining the equation, it became clear that we would need to work out a system whereby we look for win-win solutions. That aspect of the policy has continued under President Trump. But where the change has happened is the methodology and tactics. Under President Trump, President Obama said that we would like to leave Afghanistan, and so he announced a drawdown by end of 2014. But President Trump feels that it should be conditions-based, i.e., that the reasons for which the United States went into Afghanistan in 2001 after 9/11, that objectives must be met, which is that Afghanistan should not become a place, an ungoverned place where Al-Qaeda and other militants come in, dig themselves in, and plan terrorist activities against the United States or its allies or elsewhere in the world. So that is the objective, that's the conditions based. And if it requires US to keep its troops in Afghanistan for as long as it is necessary, it would. We have always called for a responsible drawdown of US forces because we have felt that if the United States pulls out immediately, there will be civil war and we will bear the brunt of it. But we also know that there is no military solution. If the military solution existed, then with NATO having provided 150,000 troops for such a long time, the solution would have come by. So there is no guarantee that with these 8,900 plus 3,900 would give you that peace that you're looking for, or the conditions that you're looking for. And therefore we have advocated a much larger, comprehensive, holistic political approach, of which kinetic actions, the use of force, is a part, but not the part, a part. The other change that has happened under the present administration is that it believes that the failure of Afghanistan is largely because of Pakistan. Because Pakistan is housing these militants who are fighting the Afghans and the US. And in that speech, we were actually singled out and humiliated and even threatened. So there was a reaction in Pakistan because people of Pakistan thought that the United States is an ally and we're friends. And the parliament started passing resolutions against that policy. We have now recovered the ground. We are now talking to each other because, as Americans have also explained to us, they are ready for a larger political approach, and that we need to work together. Because if by working at cross purposes, we will still not be able to fix Afghanistan situation. Pakistan can be a partner and should be treated as a partner. But it cannot be that you expect cooperation from Pakistan while treating it as an adversary. I think that trust level has to gel better. And we're trying, both sides are trying to do that. We have absolutely no interest in this unstable Afghanistan. I have indicated to you in my blog. So let's see if we can find a way to make it happen. As to what is it that I tell my Pakistani colleagues, because as ambassador of Pakistan, my primary duty is not to ratchet up tensions. Far from, exactly the opposite. My primary duty is to find friends for Pakistan in the United States of America. And by mirror image, friends of United States in Pakistan. So whenever we find something good news, the other day, USAID, I'm sure you all have heard about it, the development arm of the government of the United States, which has worked a lot in Pakistan, and their new leadership, we had meetings with them. A lot of work has been done, and I said that whatever work has been done, after all, the United States has invested so much, why don't we together showcase it? The tribal areas that I indicated to you, the mountainous areas, where the militants have now been evicted and people are going back and stitching together their life, building roads, schools, shops, houses, whatever else they need. The United States, through USAID, is a very, is a solid partner of Pakistan. There are a number of projects that we have done together. Now, it is this cooperation that needs to be shown to Pakistan and to people in Pakistan also, that the United States means well, that the United States is a friend. And we hope that we can do that. So far, we have not done a very good job of this, but we need to do better.
Thank you. Questions? Yes?
Yes, my name is Allison Bartel. I work with Internews on their Asia portfolio. Thank you. Your mention of USAID and the need to showcase this partnership to jointly develop Pakistan and stabilize the region is really interesting. Can you speak a little bit about the international NGO registration? Because in my work, I've heard that there have been a lot of difficulties on this front.
Yeah, sure. The aid that comes out of the United States and goes to Pakistan and which is often mentioned as a big contribution, and we recognize the contribution that it has made. It follows different channels. The on budget or through the government projects is very small part of it. Bulk of it is through the NGOs and INGOs. But what happened in the process was that many of the NGOs and INGOs, not all, but many became front organizations of intelligence organizations. You know, at its peak, Afghanistan had 44 intelligence agencies working in it. And within Pakistan, there was a reaction that many of these INGOs, they were not transparent in their work. And therefore, there was a demand that we should have a system of registering them and regulating their work. If they are open and transparent and accountable for their work, of course, it's a welcome step. But those who are not, our people needed to regulate that process. I'm sure every country, including this country, does that. And therefore, we started doing it. In the process, of course, when the transition happened, there were some inconveniences. But by and large, the process is now settling down. And 80 to 90% of the organizations have been registered back and they are working. But the vetting of 10 to 20% is still continuing.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us today. My question is related to Kashmir. My fiance is actually from Kashmir, and a couple of days ago he was caught in fire and fortunately escaped unharmed. With that being said, my question is, what new strategies and efforts is Pakistan taking to address the Kashmiri conflict? And is there any collaborative efforts occurring with the U.S. currently to address the conflict, especially with regards to the U.S.'s relationship with India? Is there some influence there that they can assist with? Thank you.
The situation in the occupied Kashmir, as we call it, Indian occupied Kashmir, is that huge amount of brutalities have been unleashed on the people of Kashmir. What do the people of Kashmir want? I think they want a right to self-determine their destiny. A right which each nation of the world is entitled to, and so are the Kashmiris. And it's not that they have been asking for this right since 1947. In fact, the first demand for such a right was in 1931, before the partition took place, against the Dogra rule. The calculus that Indian government has is that they will be able to suppress that by force. And it is our sense that that may not be possible, because every decade or so the Kashmiris rise up. This time around it has coincided with another trend in India, which is ascension of the right wing in India. So which has given the present government in India a greater confidence to deal with Kashmir through a strong hand. But in order to justify that use of force, blatant use of force, 700,000 troops inside that valley, they have created a narrative that it is Pakistan-sponsored terrorists and militants who infiltrate through the borders and come into Kashmir, otherwise the valley is very peaceful. And if you go and see the line of control and the working boundary, even the birds find it hard to cross. And Pakistan has repeatedly said that we have generations of links with the Kashmiris, but we don't allow militants, because we have given a commitment to ourselves that we will not allow our territory to be used against any other country. So Indians have to figure out whether they need to resolve the Kashmir issue by force or by dialogue. The question that you mentioned, that are we asking the United States? Yes, we are. Even as late as last evening, when I had some meetings not very far from here. And I asked the same question, lady, that you have asked me. That now that the US is so closely aligned with India, are you asking the Indians this question? Because after all, there are gross human rights violations. And they tell us that they ask them to engage in a dialogue and try to resolve. I don't know whether the Indians would be ready to accept the mediation of US or not, because the Indians have so far not, or have so far resisted any mediation, or the UN Security Council resolutions which had been the basis in the first place for giving the Kashmiris that right to self-determination.
Back there.
Hi, good morning, Your Excellency. My name is Mohammed Ali Syed. I'm from Pakistan originally, and I'm also a graduate of the GW Law School. I got my law degree here a few years ago. It's a great honor to address you. As an immigration lawyer, I have a question about actually the Indian government's policy on issuing visas to US citizens of Pakistani origin. One of the issues that I face, and it kind of relates, I guess, in a way to the question about Kashmir, is to what level can the US government and American lawyers practicing here in the US influence the Indian government's policy of basically asking US citizens of Pakistani origin to renounce their Pakistani citizenship before they can get visas. Is this something that the Pakistani-American legal community can help with? I have clients who are, for example, professors at prominent universities, prominent executives at prominent businesses who travel to India for work purposes, but it is extremely difficult for them with the current dispensation of the Indian government that's forcing Pakistani origin Americans to renounce their Pakistani citizenship, which is really unusual. I don't believe there's any other country that requires US citizens to go through such measures.
Thank you. Whenever two countries are not engaged in a structured dialogue, we always look for areas where the two can cooperate and reduce tensions and build confidence, what we call CPMs. People-to-people contact fall in that category. So we have always encouraged in Pakistan to allow the people-to-people contact. In my embassy, for instance, any American of Indian origin is welcome to visit Pakistan. I'm making it a public statement. And we have not stopped them. In fact, we have issued thousands of visas of Hindu yatris or Sikh yatris and others who for their own religious reasons want to be in Pakistan, and we have absolutely no difficulty. Or for that matter, those who are involved with the academia or think tanks or any other, we have absolutely, because we need them to go and see for themselves what the reality of Pakistan is. The Indian government has a different policy, and the reports have reached me that they do not issue visas to American nationals of Pakistani origin. or even American nationals of the parents who had Pakistani origin, who were born and bred here. I personally feel that they should review their policy. When people talk to each other, when the governments are not able to do something, people should be able to do that, fill the gap. But it's a policy that Indian government is following for whatever reason it is. I have seen that when the people of India come to Pakistan, they discover Pakistan for what it is, and all the stereotypes that they had read in the papers and in the media are shed away. So I think it's time for the Indian government to review their policy, because only then can we hope to have a better future. After all, the two countries are all about the people of the two countries. And they must not be allowed opportunities to visit each other. Even the medical cases that used to go for treatment in India have been stopped. So, but that's the policy that present government in India is following.
Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. First of all, thank you so much for coming. My name is Henry. I am an undergraduate student here at the Elliot School. And my question is regarding uncertainty. During this summer, we have seen a major crisis regarding the Gulf regions. The crisis that happened, the crisis happening with diplomacy regarding Qatar, which can be considered as an extension of the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran. My question is, as a fellow Islamic state, how does Pakistan standing regarding the Gulf crisis happening this summer? And as a diplomat who previously worked in Doha before, how do you see will this crisis end, or how the direction of the crisis will go in? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For us, the crises of Middle East, starting with 2011, what came to be called Arab Spring, which soon turned into Arab Autumn, and now clearly is Arab Winters. And we had to make a choice, because all of these countries for long had been friends of Pakistan. So we had to make a choice as to what is it that we should do. And we decided that it would be against the principles of sovereignty, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity to intervene in the affairs of these countries, and especially if efforts are being made to bring about a regime change by external force. So we decided that we will not intervene or take sides in Syrian conflict or Libya or Yemen or whatever else. And you have all seen, and we have seen, that those kind of interventions have not helped. Look where these countries are today and how many of their nationals are on the move. And we don't know where it is headed. So we are following that policy. Closer home, when Saudi Arabia and Iran, their tensions grew, particularly on the issue of Yemen, where the Saudis were keen to, or they started their military strikes in March 2015. Pakistan's message was very clear to both the countries. You see, we have a very close relationship with both countries. With Saudi Arabia, it's a very close friend. We have 2 million Pakistanis, over 2 million Pakistanis working and living in Saudi Arabia.
This is home to two of the holiest shrines for the Muslim world. And with Iran is a neighbor with a deep cultural imprint on Pakistan. So we could not choose sides. But we did message to both of them repeatedly through actions and through messengers that please find a peaceful solution to your conflict and not resort to any kinetics. Because we know that use of force rarely provides any intended solutions. So Pakistan, the message to them is, so we are not really involved in them, in any conflict, but we are certainly concerned that this rivalry and now the rivalry in the Gulf states, within the Gulf states, is not good. So our messaging to them is very, very clear and constant.
We have time for one more. Way in the back.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Don Caves. I'm a graduate student here at the Elliot School. Recently, I've been seeing in both the Pakistani and the Afghan press suggestions based on comments by officials of both governments that the Afghan Taliban has received some amount of support from a particular country situated to the north of Afghanistan. In that light, I wonder, do you see a role for Russia in negotiating some sort of ultimate peace in Afghanistan? And if so, what would that require?
I have seen those reports, but I am not in a position to authenticate whether the Russians are actively supporting Taliban, but I have seen those reports. Russians have started their own process called Moscow process. When the Americans were not pursuing the reconciliation options, the vacuum that was created was filled by the Russians. And 27 December last year, they started this process and they've had a number of meetings. They believe that the Taliban are an armed group, that the Taliban do not have a global agenda like other terrorist organizations have, that they are only Afghan specific, that reconciliation is our best bet to achieve results. So that's the formal position that they have taken in these meetings, and they constantly maintain that. Pakistan also supports that as long as it's Afghan-led reconciliation. It should be between Afghan government and all Afghan factions, including Taliban. We should provide enabling environment for them to do that, because outside interference in Afghanistan has never been helpful. And you are also from GW. Maybe before Dean says what he's about to say, I want to also acknowledge and recognize that George Washington University, and particularly School of Law, has produced many graduates, one of which is our own Attorney General in Pakistan, Ashtar Osaf Ali, who is very fond of this school. He's your promoter, I must tell you. And he was the one who asked me to meet Hank and come and have a chat here. And my own daughter, who is here today, and she has done her bachelor's, and after that, one of the schools that she was shortlisting, GW is there now. I see that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for coming. On behalf of the Elliot School and the Law School, we'd like to present you with a token of our appreciation, one serious and one a little bit of a GW joke. So I hope you enjoy both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. It's not America without a bobblehead.